Hey quilties, it's Karen Marchetti. It's time for another dual process. And you may have noticed that the dual process logo has changed a little. That's because we are now going to do one version of the quilt in hand guided and one version in computerized. And each new episode of dual process, we're going to switch out the educators so that you get a larger variety of ideas and inspiration. And we really hope you enjoy this. So this time we're working on the Stars and Squares quilt. It'll be myself and Kat Fehr. She'll be doing the computerized version. So grab your printable and let's get started. Hey guys, it's Karen. So on my version of this, I kind of went full custom. There's going to be a lot of starts and stops. I'm sure that I'll chat about different ways that you can avoid that or to do a couple things differently. But I'm going to show you exactly how I did my design. And you'll see the first thing I started is with some chalk lines. And I just used chalk to divide those squares into 4 triangles, essentially. So that's where we're going to start. I'm going to start right here. I'm going to fill this area between the chalk lines with half feathers. It just fills that space really nicely, kind of creates a little bit of movement. And it does stitch pretty fast. That'll be the fastest part of this design. From here, we'll just ditch around that square. And then from here, I'm going to ditch around the outside of that star. Just the outside edges. And then we're back to here. We might as well do our little semi-continuous curve within those star points. And then we can tie off. And we'll repeat the same thing in the star on the other side. Over here, do our half feathers. I'm so glad that I quilt much better than I draw. But the drawing is important. It does help with that muscle memory. And then again, stitch the outer edges of the star. And of course, if we were quilting, I'd be stitching in the ditch, not missing my ditch. Drawing, it's pretty hard. And then again, doing our semi-continuous curve within the points. Also in that large square, we'll do the same half square, half feathers. Wow, half square, half feathers in here. These are a little bigger because you're filling a bigger space. But it's the same technique as the smaller squares, just your feathers have to get a little longer. And then again, ditch that square. So that's essentially the quilting in the 3 blocks. Now we're going to do all the background quilting, and that's where a lot of the more custom stuff comes in. So I'm going to assume that this is what fits in my first roll. And as you can see from the background design, we need to fill this space. So there we go. Erase that. I'm going to start up top here. So I'm going to start and do the partials first. Essentially, you're going to stitch with a ruler from there to there. And then we're going to come in and echo that. And then from there, we'll do the fill in that little echoed space. And then you're going to have to tie off. Same thing over here. Create your echo, do your fill in there. And this will make more sense when we get to the full, again, this area, that full space. You'll see it a little bit better. So we can stitch over here. We have to make this little triangle space. Let's see if I can, oh, I lost my line. And that'll make more sense when you see the rest of the design, because it's only a partial little space. And again, over here, fill it with our fill. And again, you can use whatever fill you want. I just chose little swirlies because they go fast. Okay, so then I'm going to come over and do this side. Again, stitching from this line straight out. So we're using the point of the star for our frame around that square. I go in here, do our fill. If you plan your fill out right, you can come back over to the seam line and just cut through. All right, that one, that little piece, one more full echo there. Okay, so now we're going to have to do a, oh, no, I forgot something. Okay, see, and I'm glad I saw it now, because that happens in real life. You roll forward and then you realize, oh, I never stitched that. It happens all the time. I also want to create a tiny little echo around this square, which matches. It doesn't actually match. That makes this more cohesive, and that explains why you need that little one there in that partial block. Okay, so now we're going to roll down here, and we're going to do all the fill in those open areas. All right, so again, stitching, well, if you can line up your ruler, you can stitch this over your back tracks and like that. And then over to here. Now you still have to tie off there. Do your echo. Do your fill. Again, tie off. Do your echo. Do your fill. And again over here, echo and fill. We can do the same thing on the other side. Stitch up here, do your back track, stitch straight down, stitch over that block, stitch straight up, tie off, do your echo, do your fill, do your echo, and do your fill. And then again, tie off and finish that last little one with the echo and the fill. Okay. So then we can roll again. It's kind of like a bunch of little partial rolls. We would roll for this one and repeat all those same blocks that we did up here. So again, first do our half feathers here. Around that block. And then ditch around that block. And then same as this block, the star block, our little half feathers. Ditch around there. And then again, where you've already ditched, you'll have to pay attention to your back tracks. Ditch around all the points of the star. And if you don't want to go over those back tracks, you can just tie off. You could have tied off before and not traveled the continuous. That's all personal preference. So before we tie off here, we'll do our little continuous curve. Okay, and then finish that last block, and then again do all the fills. So I'm going to finish this. I'll bring you back when I'm almost done. See you in a minute. Okay, so now we just stitched that last row. We may have to roll back up in order to get this area, which is fine. That's part of custom quilting, is rolling that quilt back and forth. And then this area, oh, I didn't connect my line there. And that happens in real life too, where you forget to stitch things. Happens all the time. So then we will go and finish all of the edges with the little partials. This one just gets that little echo. Stitch this one. Fill it up with the fill. And again, you can use whatever fill you want. If you want pebbles, if you want meander, if you want ribbon candy, that is all just personal preference, what you want to put in there. Any of those would be fine for this. Finish these last couple. And there you have it. Then you can go through and erase your chalk lines. Let's see if I can get them without deleting the quilting. And you would be done. Again, drawing on a digital whiteboard is nowhere neat, but you do see from the original drawing how nice it looks. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you give it a try.
Hey everyone, it's Kat Fehr. Today's episode, we have this Stars and Squares quilt. And depending on what the fabric looks like would really help narrow down the design choices. However, since we don't know what the fabric looks like, let's just go by the piecing itself. The first pattern that I chose is this fabulous 4-block, and this is a pattern by Anne Bright Designs. And use your favorite method, however you like, to go ahead and place that pattern on top of your imported image. Now, here's where you have some options. So I love how this one block fills this out nicely, and it looks like it's custom quilted. But there are some white spaces in here as well. So depending on how dense you want the quilting or whether or not you've ditched in here, you may want to consider then going around and adding something else in this block as well. So I went ahead and just used draw line and drew in some patterns around here. So this is what it looks like now with the additional line drawn around it. It echoes the original pattern. It still looks fantastic with the block, and it fills up that negative space. So when quilting this out, I would quilt out this one, and then this one, and then go back and choose a design for this square here in the middle, or diamond in the middle. Depending whether or not you've stitched in the ditch around these would be the deciding factor of basting or not. So you want to avoid as much shrinkage as possible. For this diamond square block, I chose this Edelweiss 8T block pattern. And this again is another one by Anne Bright. So if we just drag it onto the CAD screen, use your handle so that it fits to what is pleasing to you. Now these will stitch out individually. They're not continuous, so you will have tie-offs. That's okay. What I love, 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 love about this one here is that it really looks like it is custom quilted when in reality it's one block. It perfectly fits the diamond. These little quarter of a flower, if you will, fit in all these corner triangles. I love it so much. So I'm going to assume that I can only fit the one row in my quiltable space. And once those are sewn, then I would continue on and do the same thing down here. So of course, draw out your boundary to make sure that everything is going to fit, baste or ditch, whatever works for you. And then stitch out those two. And then come on down here and then stitch out the middle one. And at this point, we would roll the quilt. And now we're already at the last row. That's what I love about using an entire block when custom quilting instead of using individual teeny tiny pieces. You get that great look of custom quilting, but with a lot less time. So I would quilt out those two, and then once those were done, quilt this guy right here in the middle. Do, 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 do. Charge is a full custom quilt because even though they didn't take that long to stitch out, it's still custom because we still fit each pattern to each individual block, but it was faster. After stitching out that last row, you're done. I would charge as a custom quilt because we did have to fit each pattern to each block, especially if there was any shrinkage or any differences in the pattern piecing as you went along. But there you have it. Easy, fast, just using 2 blocks, and you have this great custom look. I especially love how these flowers come together in all of the corners. Thanks for watching this episode of Dual Process. We hope that it has inspired you. Till next time, thanks for watching.